Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to render your Minecraft world in Blender. Today I'm going to show you how to import your world, position your camera, render and make animations of your Minecraft world. Let's get started. First of all, I'm going to show you a little bit of the end result. So we're going to have our Minecraft world in Blender, as you can see here, and we'll have good materials, we'll have nice renders of the world. So let's start by installing all the software you need. First of all, obviously you need Blender. If you don't have Blender yet, there's a link in the description to blender.org/download, where you get to this site where you can download Blender. Then you run the installer and Blender is installed. Next thing we need is JMC to OBJ, which is Java Minecraft to Object. We need that program to convert our Minecraft world to a Blender file. So first of all, we go to the link in the description, which leads to this site on GitHub, and we download version 1.16 or any version that's current. Click on the version, download the .jar file. And last but not least, we need MCPrep. MCPrep is currently in version 3.3.0. You can use any version that's newer than 3.2.1 because 3.2.1 had a bug where the textures weren't loaded correctly. So you again go to the link in the description, click on the current release, scroll down and download MCPrep add-on 3.3.0.zip. So now that we installed and started Blender, it should look something like this. And to install the add-on, you go into Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, Install, and select the add-on you want. For me, that's in Downloads, Compressed. And here is MCPrep add-on 3.3.0.zip. We select that. It should take a bit. And now MCPrep is installed. We have to click this checkbox to activate it, and we should see 3.3.0 is installed. Now that we installed the add-on, which we can check by going to the right side of this screen and pressing MCPrep, we have all that we need in MCPrep here. So next step is to export our Minecraft world, and for that we have to open Minecraft. Go into single player and select the world you want to export. For me, that's intro house. Say edit and open world folder. Then the folder should open like this. You go up here, press left click and copy this path. Then we have to go into JMC to OBJ. For that, you can go to downloads. There's normally the JMC to OBJ jar file. Otherwise, for me, it's in programs folder because I have a program installed that does that. And you go into JMC to OBJ 1.16 jar, double click that, and it should open. Then you go up here, paste with Ctrl V, paste the path that you just copied, and press load. Then your Minecraft world should load. Now that we loaded our world, we can select the area that we want. For me, that's a little bit around this house that we have here. Don't select too large an area, because it will take a lot of RAM, and I'd advise to lower the floor or heighten the floor, because -64 would export the whole world from bottom to top, which isn't required. So I'd raise it depending on where the object is you want. I'd raise it to around 40 for my purpose. Then we can go into export and it should show this window. I don't even know the default settings anymore, but this will work as well. I would always press optimize mesh so it's on, and then you can go export and it will open this. So go into the folder that you want to save your objects to and type a file name like house tutorial 1, select export destination, and it will generate the object and the MTL and the textures. Now that that's done, you can see I have already done some work here, but you can see the MTL, house tutorial 1 MTL and house tutorial 1 OBJ, and if you double click it in Windows, it should open this 3D viewer which you can view your object in. And now if you look at it, we can see there's our house, there's the trees, so on and so forth. It's pretty cool. Now that we exported our world, we can import it into Blender. So select File, Import, Wavefront, and navigate to the folder that you want. For me, that is right here. So let's copy that and paste it up here. Select House Tutorial 1 Object or whatever you called it, and you'll have the world imported into Blender. Now there will be a few issues. First of all, if you go into rendered view, by pressing Z and hovering over rendered, it's black. That's not nice. We don't like black. So we have to go into background and press on surface, on color, press here and select sky texture, and we'll have some sort of texture, some sort of sky map. I don't like the sky map though, so I'll select Hosek Wilkie, which removes the sun. Now since we do need a sun, we'll go into Shift A, light, sun. Now this light is looking directly down, and that is quite uncommon on Earth and quite unrealistic. Now we rotate the sun by pressing RX, so it's rotated around the X-axis here. And then we can rotate it a little bit more by pressing RZ if we want it to come from a different direction. I'm happy with this, so I'll save the file. So I'll save it as tutorial house 1 blend. Now we can position our camera. If we press numpad 0, we'll move the camera, and it's very dark there, so let's go into solid view mode so we can see something. And go into view, navigation, walk navigation. And now we can move like we're in a video game, which is very comfortable for positioning a camera. By pressing E, we can go upwards, and we're here. Now let's find the house. Here is the house. WASD, just like in a video game. Now that we've done that, we have to preparate the materials, and I didn't save my preferences there. So let's go into MCPrep here and say prep materials. It should go fairly quickly, depending on how large your scene is and how many different blocks you use, and how large the texture pack is you chose. Texture packs you can choose if you press JMC to OBJ, advanced, and choose a texture pack here, but that's not required. Now, I don't like the look of this because I'm used to playing on Quake Pro. So I'll select the camera and go into focal length here and press something like 35. So we look a little bit more wide angled. Now we can position our camera again by going view, navigation, walk navigation. I would advise you to right click and say change sort or add shortcut, and add a shortcut that you like, because you will use this as soon as you know it, and it's very comfortable. I think that is it. If we go into rendered view, we can see it looks fairly nice. It may be a bit dark, so let's increase the sunlight. Select the sun down here and say strength 2, and if we go into rendered now, so let's save again as always, and I'll render this now. Press F12 to render it, and it will render 128 samples, which is the default, and that's too much. I don't want to render 128 samples, so let's go into here and turn down the max samples to something like 16 because my computer is toast. Pressing F12 now will open the render tab again, and we can see 16 samples up here, and it will go moderately quickly depending on your computer and how strong your CPU is. Editor's note: you can render with your graphics card by selecting it in the drop down under the render engine, but my graphics card isn't stronger than my CPU, so I don't. I'll put a link in the description on how to change your render settings to the graphics card. And my Blender just crashed, so let's try that again. I'll save and press F12 to render. Oh, it's again at 128 samples. We don't like that. Now that the render is done, we can see it's quite noisy, and I personally don't like the noisy. And you could increase the samples, but increasing the samples is kind of very inefficient compared to denoising. Denoising is when you take the noisy image and run an algorithm over it, and it gets less noisy. So we go into the compositing workspace, press Shift A, search, and type in denoise, and put it here. It will automatically connect. Now we go into here, view layer properties, and say denoising data, and connect denoising normal and denoising albedo to the denoise node. And if we render now, it should be denoised and should be prettier. And there we go. It's initializing execution, so it's taking a while, and now it's done, and you can see it looks much better than before. Maybe you prefer the grainy one. I prefer this one by quite a bit. So let's save it by pressing Alt S. Then this window will open. As you can see, I already rendered one. I can press here to increase that number, and I'll save it as render 2. And now if we go into here, we have our render. That is very nice and good, but now we want to make an animation because animations are cool. So let's go into our layout tab again, and I have the navigation on Shift F, the walk navigation, and I can go back here, and I want to make an animation where I go flying to the house very slowly. So I'll go wherever I want the animation to start and say keying, active keying set, lock rod scale or location rotation scale, select the camera, keying, and press this little plus here, and lock rod scale is set. So now we go to frame, I don't know, 60, so 2 seconds, and I'll go up here to look at the house from up here and set another keyframe here. Now we have an animation where the camera flies up here and looks at the house. We can press here and say 60 to shorten the video, and now we can look at it and it'll look pretty nice. Now next step would be to render this, and rendering this, given that our last image took 42 seconds, is a pain. So we are going to render it in Eevee. Eevee is another render engine instead of Cycles, which is what we used up until now, and Eevee looks much worse than Cycles because it's a different technology, but it's much faster. So let's go up here and say full copy, so we don't override our previous settings, and select Eevee here. Then we can turn this down a little bit because we don't need it this high, and maybe turn on ambient occlusion and motion blur, and set motion blur to 0.2. And I would set the steps to 3 because that'll look better. Now we can look at the animation, see, do we like it? I do like it, so I'll render it. But first we have to go into here and set our output folder to whatever we had here. So MC Blender tutorial, I paste it here and say slash and render free, because this is my third render I did, render free slash rnd underscore, and no slash after that. So the files are called rnd underscore not 1, not 2, and so on and so forth. Oh, I just realized something. We have to deactivate this here because Eevee doesn't need denoising. We can connect image directly to image here, so it will go a little bit, quite a lot faster, the rendering. So let's render. Now that the render is done, we can go into the folder, render free, and you'll see we have a lot of PNG images. And we have to stitch them into a video. Blender can do that. It is a pain though, and I'd advise you to use KDE and Live because it's easier. So let's start KDE and Live, and there we go. Right click into this window here and say add image sequence, say file name pattern, select the first image of your render. It's in here for me. Then it will select all the images down here. It'll show them. You press OK and drag and drop that into the timeline down here. And if we play this, you can see here the animation. It's a bit laggy, but that's because my computer is trash. So now we can go into render, press render, and select H64 MP4, the folder where you want to put it. For me, that is in MC Blender tutorial, render free. Well, we have to enter the file name renderfree.mp4. Then we can go render to file, and this will take a few seconds. And now it is done. We can go into our render tab, say render free, and it'll be a very nice render. So that's it with the tutorial. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something. And I'll see you all in the next one. See ya!